Amateur Traveler is in its 20th year now, but can you imagine if I had people on the show who had never been to the destination, but had just read about it or seen a movie about it? That wouldn't make any sense at all, and you wouldn't listen. We all know how important it is to receive advice from people who know a destination to get the most authentic local experience. And a great option for experiencing this is Explore Worldwide and their authentic small group adventures, led by local tour leaders, perfect for solo travelers who want to meet like minded people with a desire for adventure. I'm often an independent traveler, but two of my last three trips were with small group tours because they organize everything and it's a lot easier. If you want to recreate the tour I did to Malta, they have a Malta and Gozo Discovery Tour. I'm intrigued by one of their tours called A Taste of Sicily. The company again is Explore Worldwide, and visit exploreworldwide.com to learn more. And thanks to Explore Worldwide for sponsoring this episode of Amateur Traveler. The nights are long, the days are short, and the weather is chilly to downright cold, depending on where you are. It's a good time to slip into a Quince iconic Mongolian cashmere sweaters, which start at only $50. You can treat yourself to everyday luxury at an affordable price with Quince. If you really want to dive into luxury, you can check out their leather handbags, washable silk shirts, and European linen sheet sets. Whatever you're looking for at Quince, all the prices are 50 to 80% less than similar brands, and they do that by partnering directly with top factories and cutting out the middleman. They only work with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing processes. And of course, they use premium fabrics and finishes for that luxury feel in every piece. But you've already heard me rave about my Quince travel pants. Treat yourself this winter without the luxury price tag. Go to quince.com/traveler for 365-day returns plus free shipping on your order. That's QUINCE.com/traveler to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/traveler. And thanks to Quince for sponsoring this episode of Amateur Traveler.
Got my bags packed and on a roll. I'm heading out there and I'm ready to go.
Amateur Traveler, episode 130. Today, the Amateur Traveler goes to Finland. Learn about the Kesämökki, the summer cottage, the festival of the summer solstice, and where you can find cheap eats in Helsinki. Today in the Amateur Traveler.
Got to sit in one more cafe. I know that I should be heading home, but maybe not.
Welcome to the Amateur Traveler. I'm your host, Chris Christensen. Before we get into today's interview, I do have a couple news stories for you. I just put up a video on the Tripinator site that is about an interesting and unique dining experience. It's from a company called Dinner in the Sky. And Dinner in the Sky has a special platform with 22 seats around it that look like seats from a roller coaster or other high-tech theme park ride. And in the center is a chef's station and room for a couple waiters or musicians, and they take this whole platform and they raise it up on a crane way up into the air. And it might be in Paris, it might be at a NASCAR event, but you're getting this bird's eye view of wherever you are and dinner at the same time. So it's half theme park ride and half dining experience. You got to see it to really understand what's going on there. It's an interesting concept. Some of you may remember Joe Dion, who is a commercial airline pilot and has the podcast Fly With Me, who has been a guest on this show before. Joe just did a recent episode, his episode 17, that he talked about some of the things that happen when people behave badly on flights. And I thought of his particular episode when I read a recent story from JetBlue, where a passenger who was sentenced to 10 months in prison for threatening the airline's flight attendants after they stopped serving him alcohol. The 27-year-old man became belligerent with the attendants after they cut him off. He made several statements about shooting and killing the crew. Pretty much at that point, you know how the story is going to end. Sure enough, they diverted the flight to the nearest airport, and the man was taken off the plane by the FBI. In case you didn't know, that is not behavior the airlines are going to put up with. Sounds like they should have cut him off maybe a little sooner. If you're interested in other stories like this, do check out Joe's latest podcast, episode 17. I'll put links to all of those stories in the show notes at amateurtraveler.com. Also, check out a post I put on tripinator.com recently that I'll put in a post into about traveling for movie buffs. I'd like to welcome to the show Melissa. Melissa has come to talk to us about Finland. Welcome to the show, Melissa.
Thank you.
Now, you are not actually from Finland, although you're in Finland right now. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. I'm actually from Montana, and I'm here in Finland doing a master's degree. It's a 2-year master's degree. And I have experienced Scandinavia before and really loved it. I knew I wanted to come back to see it some more and live away from home for a little while. And so I chose Finland.
And what is it that you can study better in Finland than any place else?
Well, I'm getting my degree in development and international cooperation, which I don't know if you can necessarily study it better here, but I kind of like the way the Finnish government and Finnish NGOs have approached that topic, so I thought it'd be interesting to come here and see how they teach it anyway.
And how long have you been in Finland?
I've been here for about 1.5 years.
So why should someone come see you in Finland? Why should someone come to Finland?
Well, I think Finland is really a great place. It's kind of Scandinavian, but sort of outside of what is really Scandinavia.
Right.
Sweden and Denmark and Norway are very Scandinavian, but Finland and its history just has so much of the Russian influence that it makes it really an interesting culture and a really like an interesting doorway or gate between East and West. So I think it's a really great place to come, and it's just beautiful. And Helsinki, even though I don't live there, I think is one of the best capitals in Scandinavia. I like it way better than I like Copenhagen and way better than I liked Oslo, but maybe that's just me.
I had a friend who was a Finnish exchange student in high school who taught me my one word of Finnish. But I have always heard that Finland is not Scandinavia.
It is not.
Okay.
I did not know that before I came here, but it's some technical way that Finland is not Scandinavia. But I still think it's part of that Scandinavian culture and the Nordic culture. It does fit in there, even though it is not officially part of Scandinavia.
Right. Well, I think the difference is that it's from a different language group, that the Finns are from elsewhere.
Right, right. Yeah, and the Finnish language is really completely unique. It's sort of related to Hungarian, but I think that's just in the grammar and not really in the pronunciation. And the closest thing is if you go to Estonia. Estonian is somewhat like Finnish, though I can't understand Estonian and I can't understand Finnish, so.
Okay. And so you're doing your studying in English?
In English, yeah.
Okay.
Finland has really, and I think all of the Scandinavian countries have really put an importance on having educational programs in English because their languages aren't used very much, that they want their students to be pretty knowledgeable and have a very good working knowledge of English. So there are a lot of master's programs in English.
And so that's probably the first thing to say is that even though the Finnish language, most people outside of Finland don't speak it, you don't have any trouble getting by in Finland, obviously.
No, absolutely not. A lot of people speak English, and it's just like other Scandinavian countries in that aspect. But I think that people are less willing to use it than in other Scandinavian countries because they don't speak it perfectly, then they don't want to use it. And so that can really be a hindrance in social activities, or unless they're forced to use it, like if you go up and ask somebody at the train station to use it, they're just not going to use it very often in their daily life, just for fun. So,
Okay.
But you can definitely get around with English only.
So if you have a friend who comes to visit you in Finland, and I hope you have had,
I have.
what
yes.
do you take them to see? If you only have a week or two to see something in Finland, where would you go?
Well, the first thing I would do is take them to the kesämökki, which is the summer cottage. And this is like, I think the most traditional Finnish experience you can have is going to someone's summer cottage.
Okay.
And the whole concept of the summer cottage is that you go for the weekend or for however long and have a place to relax and just unwind from the week. Generally, it's on some kind of water, a lake or the sea. And then the most important part, at least for me and most Finns, of the summer cottage is the sauna. And I would say almost all of the traditional kesamukis have wood-burning sauna.
Okay.
And so it's much better than electrical sauna, and they use the birch wood a lot, and so it smells wonderful, and it's just a place where you can relax. And in the summer, you go into the sauna many times, and then when you get too hot, you go and jump in the lake and then come back, and you have grilled sausages and hot dogs, and it's really one of the most traditional and most relaxing things that you can do in Finland.
And since we're going to the summer cottage, you're recommending we would come see you in summer, I'm assuming, from that.
Yes, the summer in Finland is great. The light is up almost 24 hours. The more north you go, of course, it's up 24 hours, and it's just a wonderful time there. But I don't want to dissuade you from coming in the winter, because the winter is really lovely, too.
And where would we go next?
Definitely, you should see Helsinki. Like I mentioned before, Helsinki is a wonderful capital city. It is full of culture and has a really great atmosphere about it, if you ask me. There's the sea right there, and you can get these day boats that go to Tallinn. And you can go to Tallinn in the morning, explore for the day, and come back in the evening, which is really a great thing. And they have some beautiful architecture, ranging from the Helsinki Cathedral, which is very, well, I don't know architectural terms exactly, but very pretty, very, I guess, traditional European looking. Mm-hmm. And then they have the more modern Finnish architecture with Alvar Aalto. I didn't say that very well because I can't roll my R's, but the Alvar Aalto buildings, which are very modern Finnish architecture. Also in Helsinki, the Esplanade, which is like the main road. That's where all the ritzy shops are, all the ritzy hotels. In the center is this beautiful walkway. Especially in the summer, it's very nice. Everybody goes there to sit out on their blankets and have picnics or just enjoy themselves. And another great summer activity in Helsinki is to go to Suomenlinna, which is an island about 20 minutes outside of Helsinki. It's this fortress that at one time was one of the biggest fortresses in Europe. And so now they've done a bunch of landscaping. And so it's very beautiful. They have lots of flowers and trees, and it's a great place to just go and hang out for the day. And you're in Finland, so you have to bring some beer with you and sit on the grass, and it's great.
Now, you briefly mentioned we're getting on a boat and we're going to Tallinn. I'm not sure that everybody can put Tallinn on a map in terms of where it is. We just left Finland there.
We just left Finland for a second, yeah. And we went directly south of Helsinki. It's not far away at all. I don't know, directly south.
To Estonia.
Yes, to Estonia, sorry, yes.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that people weren't trying to look up Tallinn, Finland in Google here.
Right, that wouldn't be good.
So you go into Helsinki, we see the cathedral, and we go on the pedestrian streets and such. Any particular museums that you would recommend?
There are a lot of museums in Helsinki, but if you want to do something that's just very traditional and very normal, then you can go to the National Art Museum and the Helsinki University Museum. Okay. But I love the Kiasma Art Museum, which is full of modern art, but I would say a lot of their collection is Finnish artists. And every year they have the Ars Fennica Award, which is basically taking the 4 best modern artists in Finland at that particular year, and they each get an exhibition in the Kiasma. So it's really great to see the Finnish modern art, and instead of just what everybody else is doing.
Have you had a chance to see what the guidebooks recommend when you come to Finland or when you go to Helsinki in particular?
Yes, I think the guidebooks recommend a lot of what I've said.
Okay.
The cathedral and taking the trip to Suomenlinna and that. But maybe something they don't recommend, which I think is great. I have heard, I don't know if this is true, that Helsinki has the highest amount of Nepalese immigrants in the world. I don't know if this is true, but this is what I've heard. And so there are so many good Nepalese restaurants. So you should definitely try one of those when you're there.
And you're saying Nepal.
Yes.
Okay, so they're used to cold weather, and so Finland is attractive, I guess?
I think that for a lot of people, the social welfare system in Finland is what is so striking about Finland, and I think Sweden also.
Uh-huh.
And they're pretty open to taking immigrants. Not many right now, but they're trying to get a good system in place to be able to take more. So,
Okay.
And they really, once you get here, they really take care of you if you are a refugee.
Interesting.
One thing I wanted to mention about Helsinki is that it's very easy to get around. They have all kinds of methods of transportation, but if you're coming home in the early morning, late nights after going to the bars or something, be careful of the train station. Finland is a very safe place, but the train station at 3, 4, 5 in the morning can be a little dangerous, and so I wouldn't suggest going there if you can help it.
Okay. Did you learn this the hard way here?
I did indeed. You go and everybody's kind of drunk and looking for trouble. And so It's just a good place to avoid.
And then the other question I had in terms of the guidebooks is, what do they recommend that you think is actually just a little bit of a waste of time?
That's a good question. Let me think on that one.
Okay.
And can I get back to you later on
Absolutely.
that one?
Tomorrow is fine.
Yeah.
So, and where should you stay?
There are some great hostels in Finland and in Helsinki in particular. They're a little bit more expensive than you would find other places, but I think that the quality makes up for it. Breakfast is usually included in the hostel. It's very secure, so they're usually pretty nice. If you're looking to do something a little bit more mid-range, they have these places called the Omena Hotels, which is the Apple hotels.
Okay.
They offer pretty good services in terms of the room and location, but without a lot of the extra frills that make things expensive. When you make a reservation, they'll give you a code, which is basically your building code. And so you pay about 70 euros a night, and you're sleeping in the middle of Helsinki. That's really quite cheap for the middle of Helsinki. And the rooms themselves are very nice, but it's just without a front desk person and without having a restaurant in the hotel. And so that's a good place to check out, I think.
Okay, interesting. Expense, you mentioned that, and I was going to bring that up. My expectation is that eating out, for instance, and staying in Helsinki especially, and I'm not sure about the rest of Finland, is a little more expensive.
Yeah, Finland is a little bit more expensive in general, and especially when it comes to eating out. I've found that Finns in general don't have the kind of eating out culture that we have in the U.S. and they have in other places. If you're going to eat out, it is a bit more expensive. With that said, I think if you find the right restaurants, you can do it for fairly cheap. They have these student restaurants.
Oh, okay.
There's one in Helsinki that's right by the train station, virtually across the street. If you have a student card from Finland, you can eat for €2.35, which is just ridiculously cheap. But if you're not a student, generally you only pay about €7, depending on the restaurant, maybe less. So it's a really cheap way to get lunch, at least.
Okay.
And then in Helsinki, there are a lot of big supermarkets that have really great fresh salads and something called riisipirkka, which is like a rice pie would be, or rice cake would be the literal translation, but it's this good, I don't know how to describe it exactly, but it's like a pizza dough crust, but small, with rice in the middle that's baked and with a little cheese. It's excellent, so you can get those fresh, so that's also an option.
Best street food?
Almost street food, but not quite.
Almost street food.
Yeah, street food would be like makkara, which is these big sausages, and those you will find all over, especially in the summer.
I saw in your pictures what must have been that then.
Probably, yes.
We started our itinerary there, and we went to the summer cottage, and then we went to Helsinki. Is there another stop on our itinerary?
I would say the next stop would probably be Turku. And Turku is a very old city. It was the capital of Finland before Helsinki became the capital. It has a very beautiful castle there, kind of in the traditional European sense of castle. It's got a very nice river flowing through the center. And if you ask a person from Turku where they live, you say, do you live on this side or that side? And that side is one bank of the river, and this side is one bank of the river. And it doesn't matter which side you're on, but I can't remember if it's the left side or the right side that is this and that or whatever. But everybody knows that this side is one of the sides, and that side is the other side of the river. So you can ask people if they live on this side or that side.
That's funny. So, like the French rive gauche, rive droite, left and right side, it's just this side and that side.
Exactly.
Oh,
yes.
Funny.
But the river in the summer is very nice. They have a bunch of boats parked up and down it where you can have meals or have drinks. And there are a ton of sidewalk cafes that are open in the summer. And I've only been to Turku in the summer, so I don't know what it's like in the winter. But
Probably fewer sidewalk cafes, for one thing.
Yeah.
Anything special to see in Turku? Am I saying that right?
Yes.
Okay.
I think that the castle is a very nice place to go. But other than that, just walking around and experiencing the city from the downtown area is really great because the atmosphere is more relaxed than Helsinki. It doesn't feel like a capital city because it's more relaxed. People are a little bit more willing to talk to you, and just walking around the old section is really, really nice.
Best day you've had in Finland so far?
Oh, okay. Johannes, which is the midsummer, is a very big deal in Finland and definitely my favorite day of the year. What you do on midsummer is everyone goes to their summer cottage. You just have the whole day where you're saunaing. Most people are drinking beer, and cider is a very big part of Finnish culture. A lot of people, especially on the coasts, and especially more particularly the West Coast, have fires on the beach. So you just can walk on the beach from fire to fire, and people are so willing. Like Finland in general, the people aren't very open and willing to talk to people they don't know. But on Johannes, they'll talk to you. You know, everybody is in a very happy, celebratory mood. It's when, of course, the sun is out the longest, and so people really utilize that whole day to be with friends and to be with family and to just enjoy life, really. And I've been lucky enough to have a family whose summer cottage I can go to whenever I want to. So they have welcomed me during that day, and we grilled sausages and caught fish and just did a very nice and very welcoming Finnish Johannes.
The most memorable person you've met?
That's a hard question because
Well, you've met a lot more people than someone who's just traveling through for a week or two, for
well,
one thing.
yeah, that's one thing. And Finns are very funny because in the daylight, I'll say, they're very reserved and not very open to chatting. But then during the nighttime, they're more open. They want to get to know you. They're more willing to speak English. Probably for me, one of the most memorable people is this guy in Vasa, which is where I'm living right now. It's up on the northwest coast. And he's actually the person teaching me Finnish. He is this just very unique and outgoing and funny creature that is as crazy in the daytime as he is at the nighttime. And so he's always willing to make a scene, even if you don't really want him to. Like my first Finnish lesson, he asked me if I knew the word for handsome, and I said I knew the word ihana, which is a good word to know, which means lovely, nice. And so I said I knew the word ihana, I didn't know handsome in particular. So he had as my first lesson to go up and tell one of his friends that I thought he was very ihana. And so that was embarrassing, but at least he got me talking Finnish.
What do you wish you had known before you went?
Let's see. I think I wish I would have known how to pack. Because, of course, I'm here a little bit longer than most people.
Sure.
So I just, put a bunch of stuff in a suitcase and thought it would be good. But if you're coming in the winter, you really need to pack smartly. Global warming has definitely hit Finland like it has hit pretty much everywhere else. But when I first got here, the winters were down to negative 30 Celsius, and I didn't really have the appropriate clothing. Like most Finns in that kind of weather will be wearing at least 2 or 3 layers of clothes, and I was wearing one, and so I had learned pretty fast that I needed to buy like long underwear and have double layer gloves and a hat with ear flaps, or else you're just going to freeze.
Now, Montana is not tropical, so Finland is pretty darn cold.
Yeah, no, I was used to cold winter in Montana, but I'll tell you, it is colder in Finland, and especially if you're somewhere by the sea,
sure,
the wind coming off the sea is just brutal. It doesn't like have the warming effect like it does in other places because the sea freezes here, and so it's brutal. And then,
oh, sorry, just involuntary shivers there.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly how I thought about it. And I just came back to Finland from being in Rwanda for 5 months. So going from Rwanda, where it was summer, back to Finland in the middle of winter was quite the shock to the system.
Any warning you would give to people before they go? One thing they should know.
Just don't expect that people are going to be friends with you right away. Okay. That it's going to take some time, but if you have the effort and the courage to keep trying, that you can usually break through the hard exterior. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. The transportation itself, like using the train, can be a little expensive, and so to budget for that expense.
Okay. The best picture or souvenir you're going to bring back?
I think some of my best pictures have been from the middle of the summer when the sun is still up and it's just really lovely. The sun is setting, but it never quite goes down, so you have the beautiful reds and purples and pinks that just doesn't go away, and so that's really nice. And then on the opposite side, from the winter, I've been lucky enough to see but not picture some northern lights, and that was just phenomenal. And definitely a reason to come to Finland. Absolutely a reason to come to Finland.
The one thing you told me before we started recording was a quirky thing about answering the phone in Finland. Can I get you to repeat that?
Sure. So in Finland, when someone answers their phone, they think it's very mysterious the way Americans answer their phone, say, hello, because you don't announce yourself. So in Finland, if someone calls you, you're supposed to answer the phone and say your last name and then your first name. So I would answer the phone and say, Plath Melissa. You can't phrase it as a question or a statement. I mean, it's just got to be very monotone, which I haven't quite mastered. And so you just have to say your first name. And then when you call someone, for example, if you have to call the bank or a store for some reason, you automatically identify yourself, even if it has nothing to do with why you're calling or if they will need that information. I would say, Plath Melissa, hi. I think it's very weird, but that's how you do it.
Funny. And again, I said I only know one word of Finnish, which is reparperi, which is the Finnish word for rhubarb.
Yes.
Because that's what Marketa Santavari, who was from Finland, taught me when we were in high school. So I would know what to say on hop when someone says rhubarb day, but that's an entirely different story. Not a Finnish holiday, I might add. I've only had the chance to use that once, which was, strangely enough, when I was in Tanzania. I was asked by someone who was a Finn if I knew the only fruit or vegetable that had been contributed by the Finns into what is commonly available in the world. And I thought, well, gee, I only know one word of Finnish, and it happens to be a fruit or vegetable, so I answered him in Finnish. His jaw just dropped. That happened to be the correct answer, was rhubarb or reparperi.
That's very good information to know.
So if we wanted to know 2 or 3 other words that might be more useful in Finland, could you tell us please and thank you? And
Absolutely. Well, in Finnish, there's no real word for please.
Okay.
The context just kind of implies it. So what you can say is if you ask for something, you can say afterwards, kiitos, which is thank you. So if I were going to order something and I wanted a hot dog, kiitos. And then it also works when someone gives you something to say kiitos, which is, again, thank you. I would also say ole hyvä. When you hand something to someone or someone hands you something, they will always say ole hyvä. And it's very polite to say that when you hand something to someone.
Okay. Does that translate do anything?
Like, here you are.
Ah, okay. All right.
Or, yeah. And then if you want to say hello, a really easy one is hey, which is HEI. And so that's just, you can use that for hello and goodbye. So it's very easy.
Great. Any last thoughts as we wrap this up that people need to know before they go to Finland?
Gosh, just that it is really, well, in my opinion, and I am certainly biased, a great place to come any time of year. Even if you're a little scared of the cold and the darkness, it's certainly worth coming in the winter, and that it's very easy to get around and can also work as a jumping off point to other places around Scandinavia. You can take cruise ships from Turku to Stockholm in Sweden. Like I said earlier, you can go to Estonia from Helsinki. So if it's part of a bigger Northern European plan, it should definitely be put in the mix.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the show and telling us a little bit about your current home in Finland.
No problem.
I have one internet resource for you today, and that is InsideTrip.com. It's a new airfare aggregator site, and one of the things that's a little different about this one is that it includes 12 different aspects of the flight, like is the flight usually on time, how much legroom is in the cabin, the aircraft type, how crowded a specific flight usually is. So it might give you a little more information that could be useful when you're booking a flight. And that site again is InsideTrip.com, and I'll put a link to that in the show notes at amateurtraveler.com. I'd like to welcome those of you who just discovered the show through the featuring that iTunes has been doing on the video version of the show on Apple TV, on the new Apple TV version. And I would also like to encourage those of you who do use iTunes, if you could go and review the show, that really helps me get new listeners. So thanks for that. If you use Google Earth, and I certainly would encourage you to do so, there is a new file that I'll put a link to in the show notes that is all of the destination-based episodes put into what's called a .kml file that Google Earth can then locate on the map. So if you use Google Earth and you would like to see when I have an episode that is near a place that you're looking at, be sure to check out that link in the show notes. Remember, there will be a live version of The Amateur Traveler on April 12th. Again, check out that information in the show notes. I will announce the guest for that version next week, and you'll see why. I got a letter from a listener this week from Joseph, who said, "Hola, Mr. Christensen. My name is Joseph, and I just wanted to write to say that I've become a recent devotee to your podcast. I find it informative and funny most times. I'm from San Diego, and since graduating college 3 years ago, I've been traveling around the world. I'm not always very plugged in when it comes to the internet, and only recently I returned to California, where I am catching my breath. It is really nice hearing about places I have never been, which fuels my fire and makes me want to go, i.e. Micronesia. But I also love hearing about other people's perspective on places I have already been. I was listening to your broadcast on San Diego, and you mentioned Fresno. It was 115 degrees, and you said, 'Don't go.' That still makes me laugh whenever I think about it. Always keep up the great work. I think it is so important for people to see things firsthand before they pass judgment on a place. Individual travel really opens your eyes and broadens your horizons. Best of luck in all future endeavors, and pura vida." Thank you very much, Joseph. And by the way, just for you and for everybody else, Mr. Christensen is a little too formal for me. Even my father won't go by that, so just call me Chris. Glad you're enjoying the show. And one last letter from Amy to wrap up the show. "Hi, Chris. I just found the podcast a couple weeks ago and love it. I especially enjoyed the recent interview with Pauline Fromer. I think the family approach of not letting the fear of high costs stop you from traveling was a perfect match for your listeners. Keep up the good work, and remember how many of us truly appreciate the time you're putting in. Cheers, Amy." Thanks so much. It does take quite a lot of time, and I do appreciate it. I am planning on doing, just so you know, if I ever get around to it and have the time, a making of The Amateur Traveler that shows some of what happens behind the scenes. I'm intending to do that with the next episode, so showing you as I put together the next episode, which will be on Disney World, how that gets done and just how much time it does take and all of the editing and such that goes on behind the scenes. So I'm hoping people will enjoy that. And with that, I think we'll wrap up this show. If you have any comments, feel free to send them to host@amateurtraveler.com or leave me a voicemail. And honestly, I don't always remember the voicemail number, but I do know that I can look it up at amateurtraveler.com/contact. And the voicemail number is 917-720-2583. And remember, you can also go to that page, the contact page, click on a button, and the voicemail will call you. So check that out. Love to hear from you. And as always, thanks so much for listening.
Got to see one more cathedral.